Welcome back into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. That is the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. This is the practice report presented by Buyers Auto, the best place to buy a new or used auto in Central Ohio. Let's get to it, fellas. Offensive line day. I'm Spencer Holbrook, by the way. Tim, Andy, Spencer, you know the drill by now, folks. Offensive line, that was Justin Fry. That was a lot of offensive linemen out there. The fellas up front talking to the media today. Tim, big takeaway.
My two big takeaways right now is that how Joe Philbin has encouraged Carson Hinsman to up his game, and it's been really encouraging. Not volunteer assistant, what do you call him?
Analyst
on this team, because you can approach these guys and they can give you all kinds of info. And one of the things he's encouraged Carson Hinsman to do is watch Muhammad Ali videos about the way he punched and stuff, and kept guys off of him extended, because punching is the big part of the game, has been for a while now. The offensive line fending off defensive linemen. And the other one was when I asked Enoch Vamahi about the fires in Maui. He's not from Maui, he's from Oahu in Hawaii, but he has friends who live in the Maui area, in the Lahaina area, and his heart goes out to them too. And I'll post a video about the number he gave where people can send donations to the Red Cross and stuff, but that is a ridiculous tragedy that has happened there in Maui with that fire. So those are my two biggest takeaways. Obviously, Josh, call me Jimmy when I'm in the facility, Simmons at left tackle, Josh Fry at right tackle. I think they've got their dancing line.
Yeah, Josh Fry said he wants to be the best pass protection tackle in the country, and that is his goal. He wants people to know him as someone who's great in pass pro. He said that he's comfortable at right tackle after moving back to that side. He said that he'd always envisioned himself moving if he needed to. That's something he knows he can do. He's good on both sides, and that's something that Ryan Day talked about. He's good. Sometimes tackles can't do that. DeJuan Jones is a tackle that Ryan Day mentioned, struggled to move from left to right, stuck at right side. Josh Fry said he's comfortable doing that. He actually likes doing that. He started a game there last year against Indiana on the right side. He played at right guard for most of the snaps against Michigan. That's where he's kind of made a home for himself. That's where he is right now.
Yeah, it's interesting that they finally found somebody that can play left to move Josh Fryer over to that right side. I think that today gives you a good idea that Simmons is on the left, Fryer is on the right. I'm going to, for now, probably make that a pencil in starters. I'm not ready to put it in pen, definitely not putting it in Sharpie, but right now I'm certainly penciling that in.
Did you at least lick the lead on the pencil when you're writing it?
Well, I wouldn't lick lead ever, Tim. I'm going to stay away from poison. I think Ohio State should too, but
graphite.
Yeah, graphite maybe. Okay, so I licked the graphite. I'm going to put it on there. Josh Fryer at right tackle, Josh Simmons at left tackle, and then Carson Hinsman at center. One of my big takeaway is Carson Hinsman's a confident dude. He talked about, he was just open with us and willing to admit, I had no clue what I was doing last year when they put me in at center. I had no clue what I was doing in the spring. Now I feel better. I feel like I have an understanding. I know what calls to make. I know how to do this. I know how to do. That's a confident guy for a second-year player. He's taken a lot of strides. I asked Justin Fry off to the side, and you'll get this at lettermenrow.com later today. Hey, what did Carson Hinsman do from the spring to now? And he said he learned to be physical. I don't know what that means. He's an offensive lineman. Of course he's physical. He asked Carson Hinsman. He said that just comes with understanding, how to play at Ohio State. And so, look for that at lettermenrow.com. But that's my big takeaway here is, I think Carson Hinsman is on the cusp of becoming the next multi-year starter at center at Ohio State. And that has to start your sophomore year, because if you're good for 2 years at Ohio State at center, you're probably going to the NFL. I think he's got a chance to do both of those things, start this year and head to the NFL after 2 years. That's a bright dude with a bright future ahead of him, Tim.
Yeah, becoming physical, one of the things is being confident in what you're doing, knowledgeable about what you're doing. Like he said, he came out of a triple option offense where they threw the ball 12 times a year.
Yeah.
I'll add this part, only when they had to. Yeah. But a lot of that just comes, like he said, he lines up and goes down in one of his first days at center, and he's got Mike Hall on one side and Ty Hamilton on the other. I mean, you better be physical. Because they're going to be physical with you, and what an eye-opening experience it is for a first-time center. And I think he has really come about as far as anybody on this offensive line in terms of is he even going to be able to challenge Jacob James for that starting job going into the spring? Jacob James had to miss the spring, but now it looks like it's Carson Hinsman and the transfer of Vic Cutler competing for that starting job, and it looks like Carson Hinsman has the lead. And I agree. I think he's come about as far as anybody on this offensive line from where he was a year ago.
Yeah, Andy, but it's not to completely dismiss Victor Cutler, who I thought was also impressive today. Kicking it over to you, I think, I wouldn't just dismiss his name from this competition. I think Carson Hinsman has the lead right now, but Justin Fry is still talking like it's early in camp, even though it's practice 11. He said still got 17 days left, so he's not ready to coordinate anybody. I thought Victor Cutler had some good things to say, and so did you. Yeah,
Vic Cutler's a different dude right now than he was in the spring. He even said that. He said he didn't feel like himself really in the spring. He was dealing some stuff off the field, and now he's fully focused on football right here, and it feels like he understands what this program can give him from a nutrition-based sense, from a just physicality sense. He feels like he's fitting in and knows what he can ask for here.
Yeah.
And he said that's just a huge difference coming from Louisiana Monroe, where everything is smaller, the media is smaller, the resources aren't as plentiful. He said last year in training camp they had a lot of injuries on their offensive line, and all of a sudden he became the leader at a tackle spot. Now he said he transfers in, and he's one of the older guys, but he's asking those questions that he was answering last year, and he's going to Donovan Jackson, who's been a big mentor to him. But he's connecting with offensive linemen like Donovan Jackson, like Josh Fryer, like Carson Hinsman, and all these guys. He said he's living with Evan Pryor and having a great time with that. He feels like he's fitting in to this program, and in hand with that, he's actually starting to feel like himself again, and that's showing up on the field, and that's why he's in this competition right now.
Yeah, and he and I were laughing about the most famous thing out of the Monroe, Louisiana area is Duck Dynasty. Not Louisiana Monroe Dynasty, and he is. I mean, you talk about culture shock or culture change. Both he and Josh Simmons, except call him Jimmy when he's on the football field. He and Josh Simmons was at San Diego State. Not exactly a major power. And now all of a sudden they're sitting here, and like Vic Cutler asked him, I said, you're on the number 3 team in the country now, and he was kind of pinching himself. He said yesterday when he saw those rankings and stuff, because you do understand this is a total different level of football, level of experience, like you're talking about. Nutritionists. You got Joe Philbin giving you tips. Everything that's going on on Ohio State for those two guys is a huge culture change, and they're both running with it. And there's a really good chance Josh Simmons is going to start at left tackle for Ohio State. Last year he played at San Diego State. I'm not sure what that says about Ohio State and its offensive line development, but having him and Vic Cutler transfer in clearly has helped the depth chart.
Yeah, Simmons' former team, San Diego State, kicks off in 11 days against my Ohio Bobcats. Simmons will be at home watching that as he prepares to take on a Big Ten opponent, which is just, like you said, Tim, just part of that culture shock. You go from the Mountain West and doing that to now playing in the Big Ten. You go from Louisiana Monroe, and your biggest rival is UL Lafayette, or just Lafayette, or Louisiana as they like to be called now. Now you're going to have to play Michigan. So
don't forget Northwest Louisiana State too.
It's a completely different ball game for some of these guys. It's also a completely different ball game again for Carson.
Wait a minute, let me interrupt you though. What these two guys have in common that some of these guys that they've been competing with is they started last year. They played college football last year, no matter what the level was. You understand?
Yeah.
I think that has given them, when you listen to Justin Fry talk about Josh Simmons, that's given them a little bit of an advantage in that respect, that they've been there, sort of done that, not on this level necessarily, but Vic Cutler's gone against Texas, he's gone against Alabama. We know San Diego State's schedule, and so that's given them, I think, a pretty good advantage compared to some of the guys they're competing with.
And then there's Carson Hinsman. I don't want to bring him up again, but he talked about how this offensive line is going to wow some people. It's going to be better than maybe some people are giving it credit for. It's not as much of a question as maybe some people in this building even thought. A few months ago. I say this every week and every time we talk to these guys because, of course, they're Division I athletes. They're all confident in themselves. But this is a group that I think hears the doubters a little more than others. I think this group kind of understands it's been kind of cast off as like the issue for Ohio State. I think they've taken that as a challenge the last 11 practices and heading into Indiana. I think this group is going to come out ready to prove a lot of people wrong who think that the offensive line is the weakness on this team. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, we heard it from all of them. Chip on the shoulder, going for the Joe Moore Award, which, by the way, Michigan has won the last couple of years. they're ready to prove people wrong and to prove themselves right. And I think we've seen that from all of them. And some of these people they've brought in, Vic Cutler was living in Monroe, Louisiana for a long time before going to school there. You talk about Jimmy Simmons, he was living in La Mesa, California, right near San Diego State. Sometimes these players, especially offensive linemen, end up at schools based off circumstance. It doesn't mean they're not talented. Josh Simmons had plenty of Power 5 offers. He was recruited by Justin Fry at UCLA when he was there. So sometimes just because they started a school, don't assume that they don't have the talent to play at a place like this. Sometimes circumstance dictates where they start their career but not where it ends. And so they have a lot of talent here, and I think they're starting to get some confidence with that talent. In the spring, it felt a little bit shaky, but Donovan Jackson said things are starting to defog. They're starting to understand where guys are supposed to be, and I think with that, we're seeing more confidence and consistency.
And what stands out? Donovan Jackson is one of those guys, we've got to watch a couple of practices, but he clearly has emerged as a leader for the offense, but definitely on that offensive line. I mean, about jacking guys when they don't do a drill right, or helping guys learn drills, right on down the line. Heck, I watched him help a manager move a blocking sled one day. He didn't have to do that. I mean, this Donovan Jackson, I think, is ready to really make that next step. Obviously, he's a really good player, but I think he's really ready to make that next step as a bona fide leader on this team. I think that was huge for this offensive line coming in. Because let's face it, I've been saying this all along. My biggest question about this football team going into preseason camp was not who the quarterback's going to be, because I think both of those guys, the two guys contending, Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, are excellent and will be capable of leading this team from the quarterback spot. My big question was in an acute sense, right tackle, but in an overall sense, the offensive line, because, my goodness, the weapons that they can launch are crazy.
But the more things change, the more they stay the same, and the two constants on this offensive line are Donovan Jackson and Matthew Jones, and I think those guys are good centerpieces to build around. I didn't hear from Matthew Jones today. I don't know. He didn't speak, did he?
I don't think
so. Okay,
so no,
I'm not going crazy. Maybe I am crazy. I am crazy, actually. But Donovan Jackson did speak on behalf, I guess, of the guards. Those guys, they know how
Mahi was out here too.
They know how good they are. The guard spots are secure. Nothing's going to change there. Matthew Jones and Donovan Jackson are going to be the two centerpieces of this offensive line. And then if the tackles emerge as the stars, then that's fine. I don't think these guards are looking for attention, but they certainly deserve attention as maybe one of the best guard tandems in the country. That's not a thing that people rank, because it's usually tackles. But I think these guys deserve a lot of credit for what they do. And they're going to be the harbingers of how good this offensive line is throughout the entire season, as long as they stay healthy.
Yeah. And Vermahi played quite a bit last year, especially near the end of the year. I mean, there's some depth there that maybe we've discounted. Maybe I've discounted a little bit, but and then when you bring in two guys who have started a lot of games, I think the depth there is better than maybe some people thought going into camp.
Well, you needed to be, because Matthew Jones was banged up at the end of last year. That's why Josh Fryer got in that Michigan game, and then also
started and finished the Indiana game.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Josh Fryer, it's not a demotion to move him to right tackle. It's just a better fit for this team, it seems like. And he's prideful about playing right tackle. He says, right tackles deserve more credit. He was going to bat for the right tackle position today, and there's obviously a lot of history of that position in this building. DeJuan Jones right now is putting on a show at the NFL level in the preseason right now. But also with Jimmy Simmons, too. I mean, the word that stuck out today that I've heard was freakish athleticism.
Yeah.
And I think when you go from being someone who's talked about in a 3 or 4 way competition for right tackle to being what we think to be is the starting left tackle in 2 weeks of training camp, that says a lot. It doesn't mean they're in a bad position that he's playing at that spot. That could just mean that he's impressed that much. And so there's 2 ways to frame it, and I think that's probably more the realistic way.
A lot of potential on this offensive line, a lot of untapped potential. We'll see if the Buckeyes can do that in 17 days against Indiana. I think it's 17 days, maybe 18. I don't know.
Depends on when and where you start and stop counting.
2 weeks and a few days, maybe a little bit more than a fortnight until Ohio State kicks off against Indiana. The 40-year vet Tim May, Andy Baxter, and Spencer Holbrook will be covering the Buckeyes every day leading up to Ohio State and Indiana. Maybe a couple of us will make the trip over there. For now, we'll be back in this building tomorrow for tight ends coverage. Thursday, we got defensive line. who knows what's in store for this training camp here at Ohio State. But again, for the 40-year vet Tim May, for Andy Backstrom, I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching the latest preseason report, practice report, whatever you want to call it. It is presented by Byers Auto. The fine folks at Byers Auto, that is the best place to find a new or used auto in Central Ohio. Go there, get your car, get your truck, get your minivan, get whatever you want, forklift, I don't know. Whatever you need to drive around in, you can go to Byers Auto. Whatever you need Ohio State football coverage, come to LettermenRow.com.